Welcome.
to Dark Narratives. I'm Isabella.
And I'm Alexandria.
Okay, so we're just gonna get right into it today. Okay, and also, by the way, I have my sister here again.
Yes, hello.
Other Alexandria.
R.I.
R.I.A.
Is this solved?
Oh, yes, it is solved.
It's
solved, and that's probably one of the most frustrating parts of this case. Normally when it's solved, you have some relief. Yes.
It's a closure.
Yes, but how this was solved and what came out made it, I can't even think of the word, just like utter betrayal and
Really?
disgust. Yes.
Okay.
So anyways, let's just get into it. So I'm going to tell you about Missy Avila.
Okay.
We're going to start on October 4th, 1985, when two hikers came up on a body laying face down in a creek.
Oh.
The hands were tied behind her back, and a large log was laying across the back of her neck and her head.
That sounds like deliberately placed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And it's obviously a horrific scene.
There was intention behind it. Okay.
Yes, I can't imagine coming across this kind of scene.
I don't think anyone would be okay after.
Yeah. So the two of the hikers obviously reported it immediately, and thus came the 3-year-long investigation into the ambush and murder of 17-year-old Missy Avila.
3 years? When was this?
Well, this is in 1985.
Okay, and so it took 3 years. Okay, that's still a really long time.
Yeah, it is. So I'll start off by saying here, this, like I was saying earlier, it's incredibly upsetting. And now usually each episode is upsetting, but this is infuriating. That's the word I was looking for. And you'll find out why. Especially as a mom myself, I would go ballistic. I would anyways with something like this, but I can't wrap my head around it, how you would come back from this. So Missy was born on February 8th in 1968. She was really smart, like incredibly smart. She was actually in a class for gifted kids.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. She was also usually the smallest in her groups. She was about 4 feet and 97 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's
a small girl.
100%. She grew up with her family in Arlete, LA, in the San Fernando Valley. During her elementary years, she met Karen Severson. That was toys for my kids. So during her elementary years, she met Karen Severson, who she seemed to click with right away. Okay. Yeah, so her and Karen seemed to click really quickly. They understood each other from what I gathered. They were always there for each other, and they were always hanging out. They were hanging out all the time. They did everything and anything together. Karen kind of became like a fixture of Missy's household at this point. Mommy. So Karen, she was a little bit different than Missy. She was more people described Karen more on the feisty side as opposed to Missy. Mm-hmm. And as they got older, people started to know Karen as a little bit louder and a fighter. So something to note here is Karen was also much bigger than Missy. Mm-hmm. She was 5 foot and she weighed about 200 pounds. So big difference, 97 pounds, 200 pounds.
100%.
And obviously that's not a big deal, but it is important for this case.
Yeah.
And you can just kind of hang on to that there. Eventually, as time went on, the two grew older. They remained best friends, but by the time high school came, they befriended another girl, and her name was Laura. And they went from playing at Missy's with Barbies and whatnot to drinking and going to parties.
Oh, what a jump. Sounds like high school.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like that's not that
It's not
big of a stretch, especially given their age. Like, you do change when you're in high school. So, and like I said, and honestly, not every teenager, but it's very common for kids to do that at this age and do what they can to rebel from society and what they should be doing. They're experimenting at this point. Either they do it then or they do it in their early 20s. So anyways, Laura was described to also be like Karen and be on the feistier side. And I seen somewhere someone had said that Laura was the type of person to fly off the handle easily.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Something to note again is she was also about 5 foot and she was about 135 pounds.
So still a difference.
Still, yes.
Yeah, there's still like
obviously,
what was it, 40-pound difference? No, she was at 98 pounds, you said?
She's 97 pounds.
97 pounds. So that's like close to like what? I'm not good at math, but like 40-pound difference. That's pretty... I don't know.
Way better than me at math.
I don't know.
If I have math questions, I don't have any problems going to my husband with the dumbest...
I just go to Dad.
Yeah, go to Dad. I
do.
have like Dad and Dylan.
They're like
my
walking
husband.
Calculators.
Yeah, they're exactly walking
It's
calculators.
insane. Dad just roasts me every time I come to him with the math question.
See, he won't roast me.
No, Dad does. 100% he roasts me. He's like, you don't know that? You can't do that off your head? Like, you can remember song lyrics, but you can't remember math?
See, and if I called Dad and had a math question, he would... Okay. Karen, Missy, and Laura became a duo at this point, but as you know, 3 can be really tricky.
Yeah, one usually gets left out.
Yes.
Unintentionally.
Exactly.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional.
Yeah.
It just is what it is with 3 people. Also, you're in a really difficult age right now.
Yeah.
Where everything seems like the end of the world. And also at that age, I feel like you almost, I mean, for me anyways, if I look back, it's almost like I thought at 17 that that's who I was.
Yeah.
And by like no means that is not who you are.
Yeah.
High school is just a blip.
It is, honestly.
And I guess Missy was starting to become more of the center of attention at that point amongst her peers in terms of her looks and her popularity and with boys and things like that. Whether this is true or just in the eyes of Laura and Karen, I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless, there was some building tension happening. Seems Laura and Karen started to feel that they couldn't trust Missy anymore, especially with boys.
Oh, okay.
And remember, they're supposed to be best friends.
Little 3 with peas in a pod.
Yeah.
What is that saying? 3.
And also, Karen and Missy, they were friends since they were 8. In the time leading up to the murder, there was multiple instances revolving around boys that the girls got into fights about, which, I mean, you do fight over boys, but this started to escalate pretty quickly.
Is that a common thing? Like, I never fought over boys.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
Really? Yeah, I never fought over boys. I mean, I wasn't really... Really?
You weren't really, like, boy crazy in school, though.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say boy crazy, but you weren't...
I wasn't really interested in dating.
Well, you weren't interested in dating. You were more interested in your schoolwork. Like...
I don't know.
Fighting over boys is a real thing in high school.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I've always witnessed it, but I was never
Okay.
a part of it. Okay, go on.
Yeah. So things started to escalate. In one instance, Missy had been dating a boy named Randy. Things didn't work out, and they ended up breaking up. But then, I guess Karen started to date him.
Oh.
So I guess no girl code there. But that obviously made Karen, I'm guessing, a little bit insecure because he used to date Missy before and she was already feeling pissed off about Missy. That started to get really bad. Karen didn't want Randy around Missy, and Missy was Karen's best friend.
Yeah.
But because they had dated previously, you can kind of see why she didn't want them around each other. Karen started to look at Missy as loose and promiscuous.
Oh, what? I hate
not,
that term.
I know.
That term's
I know.
so dirty. Like...
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it was something that they said. And promiscuous and to just not be trusted. I guess it even got so bad where Karen tried to get Randy to throw lit firecrackers at Missy.
What?
What
That
the
can really
fuck?
scar someone.
Why would
Like,
you do that? Why would you ever think to throw lit firecrackers at somebody, let alone your best friend?
That is insane.
In another instance, Laura was supposedly angry with Missy over a boy named Victor to the point where she threatened to kill Missy. Like, that's scary. Well, you'll see
they're
here...
really not happy with her.
Yes, and you'll see here that things do start to get physical. So when they actually start to become physical and you have that in your back of your pocket, like, I'm going to kill you, the phrase comes with a lot more behind it. Things were escalating very fast here. Threats were being made. There was a time where Missy was slapped by the girls.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't seem like they were just going to grow apart and make new friends. So things continued until October 1st, 1985 rolled around. On this day, Missy made plans to hang out with Laura, who was going to pick her up. There was still some tension from a previous argument, but they were going to go hang out anyways.
I just don't get that. Why didn't they just... I feel like if you're getting physical, you should just kind of step aside.
Well, they weren't looking at it like that. Like I said,
again, they're teenagers.
They weren't growing apart like some people do. They were like intertwining even more. So Missy said bye to her mom, Irene, at about 3:30 in the afternoon. And she told her she would check in, like give her a call around 8 p.m. that night. So they said, I love you, and Missy left. And Irene says she remembers that Missy was really happy when she left. She was excited to go hang out with Laura. Aww. She was in a good mood. Around 6 p.m. though, Irene receives a call from Laura and she asks to speak with Missy. Initially, worry goes through Irene since Missy left with Laura. Yeah. And she said she wasn't going to check in until about 8. So why is Laura, the person who picked her up, reaching out to her at 6?
That's very suspicious.
It's really weird, but also given to be in the moment, Irene doesn't immediately go to the worst case scenario. She's 17. Maybe they got who knows? Maybe she did go hang out with who knows? But 8 p.m. rolls around and Missy never called. So now Irene's getting even more worried. She knows from speaking with Laura that evening she wasn't with Missy anymore because they had stopped for gas and Missy left with some boys in a Camaro. That's what Laura had said.
Laura told Missy's mom that she left in a
That was the reason why Missy wasn't with her. So Irene, again, I mean, it's a scary situation. You need to try to rule things out before you start losing it. So Irene still tries not to go to the worst case scenario, but she's obviously very concerned.
She's getting there.
Yeah, she leaves the door open the whole night in hopes that her daughter will be there by the morning.
Aww.
But we know that Missy never showed up and she would never walk through the open door again. The next morning, Irene reports Missy missing, and within 4 days, this is when the hikers I mentioned at the beginning came across the body of a woman laying face down in a creek, and this woman would turn out to be Missy Avila.
That's so devastating.
Missy had been gagged with her hands tied behind her back. Her hair was hacked up and missing chunks.
Oh my God.
So she was laying face down in a creek for 4 days, still in the same spot she was killed, because whoever had killed her had placed that heavy log over the back of her head and neck.
So she probably couldn't move.
So she couldn't move.
Yeah.
So she couldn't float anywhere.
Yeah.
So police spoke to countless people and people involved in Missy's life, people around Missy, people who knew of Missy. Like, they tried to talk to everybody and come up with something, but they could not come up.
Leads.
They couldn't come up with anything valuable. And from my understanding is that the case went cold pretty quickly, unfortunately. And I've seen in some places that the police were certain that someone knew something, and the people who did it, who were involved, would have spoken to somebody about it, but nothing really came from that. So this went on for about 3 years.
That's insane.
Yes. In this time, Karen and Laura offered their sympathies to Missy's family, and they attended the funeral. Remember, they were Missy's best friends.
Yeah.
And they knew Irene and Missy's family. So Karen, being Missy's very best friend and someone who was somewhat of a fixture at the Avila's house before Missy went missing and was found murdered, She became like pseudo daughter to Irene.
Oh, wait, who? Karen?
Karen did.
Okay.
They seemed to help each other with one another's grief in different ways.
Okay.
So they were there for each other. And Irene was grateful for that at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
There's even reports that Karen had moved in at one point to Irene's.
Huh?
Karen denies that she moved in with Irene, but whether she is saying that because maybe her mailing address wasn't changed to Irene, so technically she didn't live there, but she spent all of her time there. Like, who knows if she's saying that out of the legality part of it, but in all reality, she spent most of her time there to be considered living there. I don't know. But there was a time, I guess, Karen would fill her room with newspaper clippings and pictures of her and Missy and stuff. She would incessantly visit Missy's grave.
Oh my god.
Like
just obsessive.
Exactly, in an obsessive way. Both Karen and Laura went to Missy's funeral. They sent sympathy cards to Irene with $20 in cash.
Insane. Like, self into that.
One time, Laura had showed up to Irene saying she wanted to kill herself because she was the last to see Missy. Even though she lied.
She's lying, and
she also lied about being the one to see. Like, you said that you were the last one to see Missy, but I thought she went with boys in a Camaro.
Literally.
Another thing in this time frame of the case kind of going cold, towards the 3-year mark, I haven't mentioned Eva yet, but she is a friend of either both Karen and Lauren or just mostly Karen.
Okay.
She had a family member who committed suicide in the time that Missy went missing and murdered to the time of like the 3-year mark of the case going cold.
Okay.
And after losing a family member like that, she had a lot of grief and she started thinking about the Avilas and how they might have felt when they lost Missy.
Yeah.
So with that grief and those thoughts, the police got a visitor from Eva.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, Eva had a story to tell, and this is where we learn a little bit more information about what actually happened to Missy all these years ago and what ultimately led to the arrest. So, Eva comes into the station and she says, "I got some hot tea for you." Eva confirms on the last day Missy was alive, Lauren, Karen, and herself were with Missy. Missy did not take off with the boys in the Camaro. Rather, Laura and Eva drove out to Big Tonanouga Canyon National Forest, where I believe at that point they met up with Karen. I don't think Karen was like in the vehicle with them going there. I think that there was a lot of tension there too. When they got out of the car, Karen and Laura were yelling at Missy immediately, calling her names, straight up bullying her and berating her
just
character.
out of nowhere.
Like everything about Missy, they were throwing in her face. Until the point where things actually got physical. And I mean, there is reports like Missy was saying stuff back, but also it was 2 against 1. What was she going to do? So attacking her character.
And she, like,
because you're
she
jealous
can't even
of
go
her.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
she thought she was going to hang out with her friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So until the point that things got physical and Eva seen Laura and Karen start hacking away at Missy's hair. Eva, I guess, then took off and she went back to the car. She's like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I don't want to. She's like, I'm there for a little bit of the mean girl stuff, but I guess she drew a line.
Yeah.
But she went back to the car. Mm-hmm. And she didn't see what happened from there. Although this did lead to the arrest of Karen and Laura because there's confirmation. They were the last ones to see.
There was an altercation.
Yes, they were the last ones to see Missy. And there was an altercation. It wasn't... And also, Laura lied.
Yeah, there's
to
too
her
many
mom on the
aggravating
same
factors.
day. Yes.
Yeah.
At 6 p.m. when Missy probably would have been in the water already.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of things. So on October 1st, 1985, this is where... So after, obviously, they arrest Karen and Laura, we find out a lot more information. Mm-hmm. So on October 1st, 1985, as we know, Laura picked Missy up. They drove about 45 minutes to Big Tonanouga National Forest. And I know you're looking at me like, why would you drive that far?
Yeah.
And I guess that wasn't the plan to go there.
She probably had no idea.
But it probably, Missy didn't know. But it also wasn't out of the norm for them to go out of there.
It was premeditated, probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't
Karen
just...
to this day denies that it is, that she didn't know that they were actually going out there to kill, like, that they were going to kill Missy when they were there. But I think that's bullshit. But it also wasn't out of the norm because I guess they had been there before. People would party out there.
Mm-hmm.
It just was a hangout spot. So anyways, once they got out to the forest, as I mentioned, Laura and Karen started immediately bullying Missy. Like, bullying.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Jesus.
As they were going back and forth, they were walking about 200 yards from the car towards a creek.
Yeah.
So after, as I mentioned, they had attacked Missy when they hacked away at her long hair and gagged and tied her hands behind her back.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm. From here, Laura went just a little into the creek and Karen pushed Missy towards Laura.
Oh, God.
From here, Missy was grabbed by the wrist by Laura and drowned in the creek.
Oh, my God.
And she has her hands behind her back.
She can't get up.
She can't even fight. And she's like, what the fuck is going on?
She
is
can't
this
get a
for
breath.
real?
Yeah, like, I could not.
So after, as I talked about earlier, after they had drowned her in the creek and she stopped moving, that's when they placed the heavy log on top of her and walked away.
Probably to make sure she couldn't
go anywhere.
Not only so she didn't float, but so in case she was still alive, they took away any chance of her coming of it alive. They took that away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the girls walked away knowing that they were like family to Missy. So if you remember the call that Irene got from Laura at 6 p.m. with the story of the boys and the Camaro, that obviously was just to cover herself.
Oh, 100%.
And she, trying to cover herself, left Irene with hope. Except Missy was alone in the dark in the water.
For 4 days.
For 4 days. So Laura and Karen were arrested in 1988. Karen was held without bail.
Good.
And Laura was held on a $1 million bail.
Did someone bail it?
No.
Okay, good.
So the girls pled not guilty to kidnapping, false imprisonment, and aiding in the commission of a felony after the fact.
They've tried to plead not guilty. There's too many aggravating factors in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, think what you want of that. So because of this, Missy's family had to sit through a whole trial and listen to everything.
And listen to them bullshit their way through.
Both were charged with second-degree murder with 15 to life. From what I understand, Eva was not charged with anything and treated as a witness.
Yeah, no, that does make sense because she came forward.
Like kind of the lesser of...
She came forward about it like 3 years later.
But at least they got somewhere with...
Like she didn't...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of have mixed feelings because she knew that they were the last ones to see her and that Missy didn't go with boys in a Camaro. So, but also, who knows if she was scared of the girls after that?
That too.
Because
that
they just killed somebody.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely go back and forth with it. I would be terrified of
petrified.
Karen and Laura.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if they did it because they were jealous, imagine what they do if you had something on them.
Exactly. I'd be petrified. So I don't blame her.
And I guess Eva was Karen's roommate, too.
Oh, and that makes it even more scarier. Like, she could strangle you in her sleep.
100%. People magazine did a jailhouse interview not long after they were sentenced. They did it with Karen, the interview, and it didn't seem like there was really any remorse. Rather, she laid out why it happened and why it was Missy's fault and why she was angry. And yeah, so Karen said this was all done because Missy was getting too close to her boyfriend and she just couldn't take it anymore.
That's her excuse?
Mm-hmm. That's why
I hope the judge laughed in her face.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was literally after she had already spent some time in prison.
That is horrible.
She was still talking like this.
There was no restorative justice there.
No. In the time they were in prison, parole was being denied, so that's good. Until, unfortunately, they weren't denied.
What?
Karen was let out in 2011. She spent about 22 years in prison.
And is close to a life sentence.
Laura was out in 2020, and she spent about 31 years in prison. So since being let out, Karen has been rather loud.
And being quiet?
she didn't really seem to care about the feelings of Missy's family. It's not like she got out and like disappeared and changed her name and lived quietly.
No,
Yeah, she's loud.
Oh, wow.
Karen,
and that poor family. Fuck.
She's written 2 books that cover bits of the murder.
Oh my god.
To try to profit from the earnings.
I hope there's a civil lawsuit out of that.
Yeah, so there was a time she was saying that proceeds would go to anti-bullying. I guess there was some confusion because I guess it was just going to be a small portion of the proceeds, because when she was asked about this specifically, Karen said, "I didn't say everything. I have to live, and it's hard to get a job out here."
Ma'am, if you didn't kill anybody, it probably wouldn't be that difficult to get a job.
Karen even went, and you can watch the video on YouTube, but Karen even went on Dr. Phil. Karen goes on the Dr. Phil show, and she, in my opinion, she made an ass out of herself. She says things from, again, showing how mad she was at the time, and she says, "I was tired. I was frustrated. All this stuff, everything we were accusing her of, she knew she did it. But not one time did she say she's sorry."
So then they resorted to murdering her.
She kind of immediately went back to that point in her life and could feel the anger, is how she is describing this, in my opinion. She says she went to leave at one point with Eva, but when she heard more yelling, that's when she went back and she participated more. But she says she never participated in holding Missy down or putting the log. She's like, "I can honestly say I didn't hold her down in the water."
Karen?
Or putting the log on Missy. But she did kick over the log to Laura when Laura asked her to give it to her instead of getting the log. She said she just kicked it from where it was and it just floated over to...
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either, because the log was about 100 pounds.
Yeah, it definitely took 2 to
Missy, remember when I said that the weights were kind of important here?
Yeah.
Missy was 97 pounds. Karen was 200 pounds and Laura was 135 pounds.
There's a different,
and then there's
100 pounds.
2 against difference. 1.
Yeah.
And then you have 100 pound weight holding down something smaller.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Who's injured?
Yeah, I don't know how the log got there, if you just gave it a little kick, but whatever. And then that made me think, okay, if you weren't the one holding Missy down, if you're saying that you didn't hold Missy down, where were you?
Yeah.
Were you watching this, or were you... And it's not like she was there and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't want to intervene because I don't want Laura to kill me." She had participated all the way up to that, and she gave the log.
Exactly.
And then she stayed quiet for 3 years.
Whereas Ava walked away because it was too much.
I said here, I was like, I guess I'm just expecting more of, I fucked up. It cost me my best friend and her life, her family's life. I've wrecked their entire family forever. Some sort of...
In the perfect world,
if you're why did you do this, Karen? I expected maybe her to be it was the worst thing I ever could have done. I can't believe I was involved in something like that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Doing something with this after she gets out. Instead, she's trying to profit from what she did.
Yep.
So I don't really believe, and even when I'm watching her on Dr. Phil, I don't believe a thing that comes out of her mouth. And it's not because I know the story. When I look at her, I'm like, I do not believe you. The family was able to sue Karen over trying to make a profit from the story of murdering their family member, Missy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they did succeed in creating Missy's Law in October 2015.
Yay, it became a precedent.
So where murderers cannot fucking profit off of their crimes.
Yeah.
So now Karen's books are for $0.
Good.
And I wasn't able to find too much about Laura. I don't know if this is because she was let out not too long ago.
2020, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, she's probably still on they're both probably on parole for life.
Yeah. Laura's probably going through all the steps to get still released. I don't know. I couldn't find
in 2020. She's probably still on parole.
Yeah, I'm not. I saw somewhere that maybe she was trying to write a book, but then I was looking into that and it brought me right back to Karen writing the book. So I don't really think there's I don't really think there's a lot on Laura yet, but maybe maybe she's choosing to be quieter. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But regardless,
do Laura and Karen still have contact?
I didn't see that.
Okay.
But regardless, Laura and Karen are out to try to make something of their lives, but unfortunately Missy is still gone.
Yeah.
And she didn't even get the chance to get out of her teens. Irene is still living with it every day, and
Yeah.
it's just so wrong
Devastating.
to bury your babies before you.
Yeah.
You know, for you to bury your babies and not your babies to bury you, it's just so unnatural and horrifying.
Especially,
and for it to happen in this way. But yeah, that is where we are at. The killers are out.
That's insane.
Irene still lives without her daughter. But yeah, that is it for this week. And if you want to find us, you can go on TikTok or Instagram at Darknarrativespodcast, or you can email us at darknarrativespodcast@gmail.com.
Ooh, yeah, give some good stories,
Yeah,
please.
I want people to send stories in so much. But yeah, other than that, we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. And that's it for this week.
Remember, it's a dark world out there. See you creatures
creatures
next
next
week.